record button. And we are recording this for educational purposes. We post it, and anyone who misses the call can then see it. You can go back and review it again. So I'd like to welcome you all to our introduction to the Empathy Circle facilitation and the training, and this is also a practice. I'm Edwin Rutch. I'm director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and for about 14 years, I've been working on the topic of empathy and how do we create a more empathic society. Our website, cultureofempathy.com, is the largest website for empathy-related material, has hundreds of interviews with empathy experts. We have a social media community and do a lot of different projects on just fostering more empathy in the world. And one thing we have is this Empathy Circle practice, which we're going to do today. And let me actually show you our schedule today, and I'll do a little screen share for what we're going to be doing. And this is our introduction to the Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. I'm doing the welcome right now. Next, we're going to go around and hear from the participants. We're just going to hear from each of you, your name and location and why you're interested in the Empathy Circle and the training. We'll go through about the training, sort of review the training, what's involved in taking part in it. We'll have some time for questions and answers. And then we'll show a very short video instructions on how to take part in an Empathy Circle, and we'll actually get some actual practice doing it, because we're very much about doing empathy, not just talking about it. And then we'll go into small groups to practice, and then we'll have a full group debrief. So next, we wanted to just go around and introduce ourselves, since we're a small enough group that we can hear from everyone. We just like to hear, let me put the questions in here. And this is the question is your name, your location, and why you're interested in the Empathy Circles and in the Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. And I'll model it. I'm Edwin Rutch, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And why am I interested in the training is because I find that the Empathy Circle is the most effective first step gateway practice to learning empathy and listening skills. And I would just like to teach everyone in the world, all 7 point whatever billion people, this practice, because if everyone learned this practice, I think it would just create a much greater well-being in the world. So with that, Bill, would you be willing to go next?
Sure.
Call on people.
Sure. My name is Bill Filler. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been working with Edwin with Empathy Circles online and on the streets for about 3 years, a little over 3 years. I'm a retired special education teacher, and I find that this practice is elemental towards starting to create the kind of habits and kind of communication that we really need to address the problems. It doesn't solve everything, but it forms the basis from which we can solve things, I believe. So I'm dedicated to promoting it. Graham?
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I'm Graham from Ontario in Canada, Windsor, Ontario. And I've been in the Empathy Circles here for roughly 7 months, from the end of November last year. And I'm finding this very, very interesting. And like Bill says, it's kind of elemental to lots and lots of areas of problem solving. And for me, my interests are in being able to have good relationships, influence other people, and all sorts of things come from being able to influence people. And this is very, very helpful in that area. And so with that, I thank you, Bill.
Great. Jen?
All right. My name is Jennifer Erickson. I am I'm in Camrose, Alberta, Canada, so we're in a small town here. I am a family peer support facilitator as well as a suicide, grief, and bereavement facilitator. And so I find that a lot of the clients that I work with, their issues really butt up against navigating in a world where people are not empathetic to what they're going through. And so I think this would be a really phenomenal tool and training in order to enhance the practice of promoting empathy and well-being for people.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Welcome. Michelle.
Yeah, I'm Michelle. I'm in Galway in Ireland, and yeah, that chair just landed deeply with me. My family were deeply affected by suicide, and it actually brought me to this practice, to this building of empathy, culture of empathy, because I just feel like it's kind of really, really difficult, like what actions that can be taken. But I think like spreading empathy practice around the world as much as possible is a fairly, yeah, it's not the worst way. Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. Trishla?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Trishla. I'm a family doctor. So I'm an international medical graduate in Canada. So I think empathy is the basic fundamental need for everybody, especially, during the pandemic. If we think about ourselves, so you need somebody to, actively listen to you. And I think this is the skill that everybody should pursue. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Welcome. Stephen.
Good morning or evening, depending on where you are. I'm Stephen Landau. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the US. I've been introduced to the practice of empathy in another organization, and I recently found out about this training. And I'm super excited and curious and really eager to be underway with it.
Great. Great to have you here. Mina, I remember you. Hi.
I'm Mina, and I was at last week's. I'm the kind of person who needs a regular schedule, so I figure if I do this Saturdays, then we have a regular schedule. I thought I'd maybe get back to it Monday, but I didn't. So I introduced myself last week over Delaware, professor of media at Del State University. I'd be interested in doing this with my students, but friends too. So that's why I'm doing it.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Cam.
You muted,
You're
Cam.
muted, Cam, man.
Sorry, I'm new at Zoom, apparently. I'm from Toronto, Canada. And empathy obviously is a great personal skill to have, but I'm about to embark on a master's of psychology counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's going to become a great professional skill also to sharpen. So I look forward to learning from all of you. Thanks.
Great. Well, I think you'll get something out of here. So welcome. Victoria.
Hello, I'm Victoria. I'm from Essex in England. I'm a family support worker or family support practitioner, and I work closely with families of children up to the age of 19, and we're looking at doing a trauma practice. So empathy obviously will come into that quite a lot because we never know people's backgrounds and what they've been through. So that's why I'm here. I just found you on LinkedIn and thought I'd join you.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Jeanette.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeanette. I live in South Central Los Angeles. I currently work in the homeless service field, so I'm an office coordinator. But we practice empathy and we have very trauma-informed care facilities. But I think this would strengthen our empathy, and I want my own personal life. Like you said, I feel like the world would be better if everyone just had empathy for people instead of just the way things are going. So it's watching.
Great. Well, great to have you join us. Thank you. Michelle.
Hello. I'm Michelle. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. Well, Pickering, exactly. I've always believed in the need for empathy. And this year I started my own business for listening to people, just mainly listening and giving them the ability to say what's on their mind and get their stress off, and just being there to support them. And I saw this through LinkedIn, and I thought, what better way to just add more skills and more empathy into my life and share more with others.
Great, Michelle. Welcome. Okay. Anne. You're muted. There you go.
Hi, sorry about that. I'm really,
That's
really
okay.
sorry. I had to rush.
It's
I was
okay.
at an event, so a bit late. Good morning, everybody. What's the topic, may I ask?
Oh, you were just doing short introductions. Name, location, why you're interested in this.
Okay, yes. My name is Anita Shuna. I go by Anne. I am in the GTA in Toronto, specifically Brampton, Ontario. I had attended the first session last week. I missed. I am very much interested in diversity inclusion, working in the human services sector. I'm seeing that the title, it piqued my interest, and I thought I'll be here. Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Laura. Laura, I see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. So you might check. I'll come back to you. Yeah. You might check where the microphone is and see whether your output or something is. Okay. Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I work at the trauma department. I'm a social worker, do some resiliency support groups, always looking to do this type of stuff. It's also good for self-care, so I'm also here for that. Thank you.
Great. I worked with a lot of social workers, and one of the things that I learned is always meet the client where they are. So that's a words to the wise. Maria.
Hi.
Hi.
I assume we're doing introductions.
Yes.
So my name is Maria Silverheart. I'm a community manager for some technology companies. My platform is kind of like for good. So technology for good, data for good, hacking for good, data science for good, open source for good, these kind of idea. So just kind of keep collecting for good technologies that I work with, and I manage communities that use those technologies.
Great. Well, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Sure. Godfrey. Can you hear us, Godfrey? You're muted. There we go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Godfrey. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm a social worker. I work with orphan care. We help orphans and vulnerable children. I'm interested in learning about empathy, considering my line of work. Thank you.
Great. Great to have you here. Hilna.
Hello, thank you. My name is Hilna Fontaine. I do cultural humility training online, working in the anti-racism space and trying to build allies. And empathy has been, I think, a challenge for a lot of participants. And I'm interested in the title because I'm thinking, how can I make participants, allies, more empathic so they become allies, basically. And I'm based in London, England.
Great. Well, welcome, and hopefully you'll find something that you can use from here. And
Thank you.
Dr. Lady Moore.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Dr. Lady Moore, and I am a clinical social worker. And I recently got a contract with one of the county hospitals in Northern California to help develop their trauma department program. And I am dealing with a type of trauma right now that I have not done, ever in my career. It's always been outpatient. I'm working with GSWs, gunshot wound victims. And so I am trying to develop my empathetic side. For that, I'm also a chaplain. And so this is going to be very interesting and very helpful for me to be a part of this training. Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome and great to have you here. And I see one other person, Laura, is coming in. Laura? Hi. I think, oh, this is you had audio problems. Laura, can we hear you now? Say something. No. Okay. All right, we'll keep on letting you. All right, Laura. Okay, Edwin, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Bill, and everyone for those introductions. And Laura, you can check below where it says mute, the little microphone. There's a little up arrow. You can try using a different microphone, and if you can get that working, we can get introduction from you. So right now we're going to go next into a little bit of an overview of the training. We have the Empathy Circle, which will explain how that works a little bit later. And then, but right now this is the training, and I'm going to do a screen share and to our website. Oh, before I do that, I'll put into the chat. That's the website, but you don't need to go there at this moment, but that's the site you'll want to bookmark. And so this is our Empathy Circle Facilitator Training website. This is training is module 1 for the introduction to the Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. And if you scroll down, you can see that we have a link here. You can go through to the Empathy Circle website. There's a lot of material about the Empathy Circle practice itself. Our goal, as it says here, is to train everyone on the planet on how to take part in and facilitate an empathy circle. So it's a very simple practice that is very accessible. Anyone can learn it, and it's very scalable. And this website here recommend you bookmark it if you want to take the training, because you can review this website for all the material about the training. The module 1 consists of 5 sessions, which are 2.5 hours each. And it's scrolling down, you can see it's an open source. So we're really using the open source model that anyone can use this training. It's not like a proprietary training. So we're really trying to get everyone to be able to take part in it, help co-host it, co-design, co-develop, and promote it. So once you learn the training, we hope that you'll start training others using this. There's no cost to take part. You can donate if you would like. We're trying to make it as accessible to everyone as possible, so that finances is not an issue. To get started, it's we have here, these are intro. We have some intro cafes, and you can click on this link here. It'll take you to a Facebook page. It has a list of empathy circles that people are holding around the world. And we invite you to hold empathy circles and get on the calendar too. And then to take the training, we have a prerequisite that you take part in 2 empathy circles at least. So taking part today counts as 1 empathy circle. And you can take an empathy circle with us, or actually just hold one yourself. The instructions are here. There's introductory videos on how to facilitate one. You can just hold one with family and friends, or you can take one with us. And the time commitment for the training is mentioned as 5 sessions, 2.5 hours each. We try to get about 20 to 22, 23 people in a cohort. And between each session, between each week, we have what we call an empathy buddy call. So we try to build community and a support network. So you'll be matched up with someone in the training cohort, and you have a half-hour empathy buddy call with them. So you'll have a different person each week that you do empathic listening with, and you schedule a time to talk with each other. And then also we ask that you try to hold an empathy circle during the week, and that's another hour or 2 that you do with family and friends, and then you come back and report on it. So you can click through, and there's more of the details of the time commitment are there. The training path, which is how does this progress? That first you do some empathy circles, you take the 5-week training, and then you can take the training several times as a participant, and then you can take it as a trainee. So as a trainee, you learn to actually present the training, and then you can become a trainer. So after taking the training several times, as you feel comfortable, you can keep getting more skills to the point where you become a trainer of the training. So you can team up with others and start holding the training yourself. At the present, we have 2 cohorts that you can sign up for. We have, this is our Saturday. Right now we're doing the intro cafe, and we're actually set to push the date back, the start date to Saturday, August 7th. We're waiting to get about 22 participants, so we didn't quite have that. We had wanted to start next week, but you can click through and there's more information about this cohort and how to sign up and the steps for signing up. So that's will be this time slot will be cohort 12. We have, if you're wanting to get started, this one is starting in July 19th, cohort 13. That's cohort is is full, but we're going to take some extra people in it. So it'll maybe go up to 25 participants. So you can click through, again, for more information on how to sign up. This group, this one is for sort of optimized for Extinction Rebellion, which is the environmental group, but everyone is welcome. The Extinction Rebellion uses empathy circles in a lot of their meetings around the world. And so it's a little bit optimized for that, but like I said, anyone is welcome. You can get an overview of what's involved in this training, Module 1 training. This is a previous cohort, cohort 5. And there's an outline of each session, so you just know what to expect. You can click through to each of these and see more about what's involved in the training. This was our training cohort 7 team. And there's more information about the culture of empathy, the values of a culture of empathy. This training is more than just learning the skills of how to take part in an empathy circle. It's also learning about how to create a more empathic culture. So how do you create a more empathic culture in your family, in your work, in your community? And that's kind of the bigger picture, the bigger vision is how to create that more empathic world. And then there's a lot more like how to take part, facilitator support. We try to have facilitators. There's a community of support facilitators. There's an email list that you can join. And so if you're holding your own empathy circles, you can reach out to the community and you can always get people to help you facilitate circles. And the list of challenges that sometimes is a facilitator challenges you might have, and a lot of other kind of links. And then there's links to our calendar, the Empathy Circle website, and cultureofempathies.com website. So a lot of empathy related material. And so that's the website. If you kind of passed cohorts, you can see the cohorts. Each cohort, you can check in on that cohort for information about that cohort. And then the sessions and testimonials down here and so forth. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly, this is just a quick review of the site and of the training. And so I'll open it up for any questions now, just that you might have about the training. Laura, were you able to get your audio going? Just checking. Nope, still not working. Nope. Okay. So yeah, just raise your hand if you have any questions about the training. Oh, somebody asked, is it right that the cohort starts next Monday? We pushed the cohort back to August 7th, just because we're trying to get, it wasn't quite full. So we'll be doing, in this time slot, we'll be doing these intro cafes. So you can come back next week and do another circle for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll start hopefully on the August 7th. I think it's August 7th, isn't that what I said?
July 19th for the Monday, August 7th for this Saturday.
Yeah, that's it, right. That'll be August 7th. Thanks, Bill. So any other questions? Yeah, Jen? You're muted. Here I go.
Can empathy circle training be used for children? I noticed the majority of it's adults. Does anybody ever adapt this for kids?
Yeah, I think I would love to see it done with kids. we have in one of our trainings, the youngest person we had was a 14-year-old and his mother. So they were taking it together, which was really great. And I've done it with my nephews and nieces. So my niece is 5 years old, for example, and my nephew, 6, and now nephew is around 7. And they would get in conflict with each other, kind of fighting as kids do. And I'd say, oh, we have to have an empathy circle. There's a fight here. And then I would do empathic listening to my nephew, listen to him, then listen to my niece. And she's only like 5 years old. And I say, well, what's the issue? What are you fighting about? Let me hear. And I do empathic listening to them. And then I get them to do empathic listening with each other. And they're very capable of doing, I think, already at 5 years old, you can take part in an empathy circle. And, as kids are all beating up on each other, the older brother always wins because they're stronger. And then my niece says, I like empathy circles. Let's do it again, after having done a circle, because this is a way that you get heard. You can talk through your conflicts already at that age. So yeah, I would love to see, and Bill's working on this, on how do we bring empathy circles to the schools. I think in kindergarten and first grade, you could already start, doing this practice and just kind of scale up every year, keep doing it. It's good for the kids being heard. So somebody listens to them, doesn't talk over them, they get heard, as well as a skill that they can use for conflict resolution, like out on the playground, that they could, use this, say, hey, we have a conflict, let's have an empathy circle around this. So it has a lot of, yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Graham? You're muted.
Just a quick question, technical question. Does Laura O'Neill have her audio working? Just so that
No. Okay, any others? Am I seeing any?
How did you get started with the empathy circle?
Oh, okay, yeah. I was making, it was about 14 years ago, I was making documentaries about human values. And I just came across people started saying, oh, empathy is a value that's important to me. And I just saw how meaningful it was to people. So empathy leads to care. And people would just get so emotional when they would start talking about this. It was so meaningful. I said, wow, this is really important. And then I heard shortly after that, Barack Obama started running for office, and he said the country had an empathy deficit. And I thought, well, I can do something about that. I can sort of help with this empathy deficit in the country. And we still have that, definitely, in the world. And so I just sort of have dedicated my life to, fostering more empathy in the world. So, yeah. Okay, then if there's no more questions, I'm going to share just the how-to. This is the instructions for how to take part in an empathy circle, and I'll be creating, and if everybody could mute, if you're not muted, just so and we'll lock the room, so we won't let new people in if they're late. So just to let you know, not to let anyone else in. Okay, so these are the 6-minute introduction on how to take part in an empathy circle, and I'll start that. I'm Edwin Rutch, founding director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. I'd like to welcome you to this short presentation on how to take part in a basic empathy circle. So next, let's look at the step-by-step how to take part. An empathy circle starts with 2 to 7 participants. Here on the screen, we have 4 participants, which I find is an ideal number. There are 4 basic roles, and the roles rotate among the participants as the empathy circle unfolds. 1, the speaker, is the first person to speak. 2 is active listener who actively listens to the speaker. There's the silent listeners, they quietly observe and witness. And the facilitator who organizes, schedules, and hosts the circle. They also do the timekeeping, and they have some experience with the process and help keep participants in the process. However, everyone has the responsibility to hold the process and the practice. So to begin with, the facilitator will start the empathy circle. They welcome the participants. They lead introductions if the participants don't know each other. The facilitator invites participants to give short introductions, for example, their name, where they're from, and something personal about themselves. The facilitator then reviews the empathy circle process to remind everyone how it works. They announce a discussion topic if there is one. Even if there is a topic, you can always talk about what is alive for you. That is what is on your mind in the moment. And 5, they set the speaker time limits, perhaps 5 minutes, for example. And the facilitator then asks who would like to start to be the first speaker. So at that point, the participant volunteers to be the first speaker. As speaker, you select who will be your active listener, and you can select anyone that you want. You speak about the topic given or whatever is alive for you, and so you'll speak a bit until you have maybe expressed an idea or two, and then you want to pause to give the active listener a chance to recap what they understand that you are saying and feeling. If you say too much, the listener may have difficulty in reflecting it. As the active listener, you are listening to the speaker to get an understanding of what they're saying and what is important to them. You are giving them your full attention as a supportive companion on their inner journey and exploration. When the speaker pauses, you recap your understanding of what they said and how they feel by reflecting the essence of that in your own words. You can summarize, paraphrase, or even say the speaker's words back to them. Even though you may have a strong impulse to respond with your own ideas, judgments, analysis, advice, and sympathy, or even questions, resist the impulse to do so because these common responses block the speaker from moving along their internal journey. You'll be able to say whatever you want when it is your turn to be the speaker. If you don't reflect the understanding to the speaker's satisfaction, they can always say it again. Then as speaker, you check, do you feel understood to your satisfaction? If you do not feel understood, you can say it again, perhaps in different words. If you do feel understood, continue sharing. Again, after speaking a bit, pause to give your active listener a chance to recap their understanding of what you said. As the active listener, you again share your understanding of what the speaker said and meant. The cycle of speaking and reflecting continues until you, as the speaker, do not have anything else you'd like to say, or until you get a signal from the timekeeper. If you get a signal from the timekeeper, then finish up what you're saying in a sentence or two. After you get a final reflection, you can end your turn by saying something like, I feel fully heard, or something like that to indicate you are done with your speaking turn. At that point, the roles then rotate. The active listener becomes the speaker. The person they select becomes the new active listener. For everyone having equal time, it is good to select someone that hasn't spoken lately, but it is your choice. The others in the circle become the silent listeners. This process of taking turns in speaking and active listening continues for whatever time is allotted for the empathy circle. And this was just a very short introduction. The best way to learn the practice is taking part and doing it. There is more in-depth material on taking part in an empathy circle and facilitating one at empathycircle.com. Thank you for listening. Okay, so that's just the minimal instructions. If you go to empathyscircle.com, there's a 9-minute video, a how-to video, as well as a 25-minute one that goes into much more depth, that goes into the benefits of the practice and into more detail. So I'm going to now put our topic. So our topic for the circle is why are you interested in empathy, empathy circles, and taking part in the Empathy Circle training, or whatever's alive for you? As mentioned, you can always talk about anything, any questions you have. You're not constrained by the topic. So we're going to go now into 4 groups. The number 1 will be Graham will facilitate room 1, Michelle room 2, and then Bill room 3, and I'll stay here in the weight room for the 4th group will be here. And then we have about an hour and 5 minutes. That's about 95 minutes. And then we'll come back to the full room and have a debrief. So now you get to actually practice the circle practice. So here we go. And the facilitator also will be the first listener. So just to model it, whoever's facilitating, someone can volunteer to be the first speaker and speak to the facilitator, and you have 4-minute turns. And here we go. So you should see a button there that you can. So you just want to click on the link. If there's some people be here in the room with me. For the others, you'll see a link to join the room. Hopefully. Okay, I think we're set. There's a Maya, you should be moving to the other room. There's a link there. You should be joining Bill. Are you seeing that link? Well, hopefully that and Wafa as well. There you go. So some people are starting to move. So, okay, we can get started. Who would like to start? Then I'll keep time. Let me bring up my clock here. Stopwatch, didn't have that set up. Stopwatch. 1 second. We'll be doing 4-minute turns. And so who would like to be the first speaker? You can speak to me. You see the topic is why are you interested in empathy, empathy circles, and the training? And I'll listen. Okay, Michelle.
So you said the topic is why?
Yeah, let me put the topic in again. I'll put it into the chat. And it can be whatever's alive for you. So I just put it in the chat. Why are you interested in empathy, empathy circle, and the empathy training, or whatever's alive for you? Just any thoughts, questions you have, and I'll listen. You've got 4 minutes.
Okay. I think I've always been interested in empathy just because, like you said, the world doesn't have enough empathy. A lot of people care about themselves and don't take interest in what's going on with others. And I feel like when we take that time to actually listen and focus on how other people are feeling, it helps us to learn more and understand each other in a better way. And I think that understanding is needed, especially during these times. It's a scary world we're going through with just the issues going on in the world, and then we have COVID on top of it, and I don't think people are feeling heard.
Can I reflect back what I'm hearing so far? Just pause you. So I'm hearing that you feel that empathy is important because there's not enough of it. People aren't listening to each other, and they're sort of self-centered. They're not just thinking about themselves. They're not thinking of others. And it's a scary world with COVID and all the things that are going on, and that empathy sounds like empathy could help there.
Yes. Yes, I feel heard with that.
Mhm.
Yes, and I think that the empathy circle will help us all to learn a little bit better how to be more empathic towards others, and take that time to actually listen, and then maybe as we all learn, it will actually spread, and we can spread it through other people, and then maybe the world will change for a better place. It probably take a long time, but I think that if we're all doing our own part in different ways, in different parts of the world, in different educations or workplaces, I think that it will make a better place.
Mhm. So what I'm hearing is you think that the empathy will make a better place. It might take some time. And if we each do sort of our part, that, we need some practice to actually learn it. And if we all do our part, it'll kind of just help improve the world, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what else. I think that it's really important value to understand. I think that a lot of people are just kind of born being empathetic, and it's something that some might not understand, and not really believe in, actually, to be honest. But I think if we do share it and make people understand what it's about, then that way we can focus on it more. I think that this is actually a great way of doing it, and I appreciate being a part of it.
Mhm. So you're seeing that it's important to teach people what empathy is. They maybe don't realize that they can learn it. And so you're also appreciative of this as a practice to what we're doing here.
Yes.
You still have 40 seconds. So anything else? Or you feel heard? If you feel fully heard, you can say, I feel fully heard. Okay, then I'll also, for the others, can you turn, if you can turn on your video, it would be great. Just it helps sort of with the sense of connection. But if it's bandwidth issues, that's understandable too. So I'll speak to Jen then. Okay.
Listening.
Yeah. Okay. Well, from having worked for about 14 years on the topic of empathy, I found that this active listening, empathic listening, is sort of the easiest first step for empathy training, or for learning and practicing empathy. So what we're doing here, I find like the easiest practice that I know of, for fostering empathy skills.
So what I'm hearing you're saying is that you're finding that by hosting and doing this practice, this is the easiest step forward for people to start and begin this journey of empathetic listening.
And this is based on the work of Carl Rogers, who is a clinical psychologist. He's considered one of the top 2 or 3 clinical psychologists. And he found that in the therapeutic context, just listening to people, without telling them what to do or giving them advice, but just being present with them was one of the most healing things that you can do within the counseling session, just because people feel heard and understood. They don't feel so alone, and that sense of connection has a real healing quality to it.
So creating that empathetic connection is more about the process of being active and doing the listening, not the interjection, not the waiting to speak in response to somebody else's words, but the actual process of listening itself.
Yeah, exactly. And then what we're doing is taking it out of the therapeutic and just putting it into human relationships. So it's something any person in a relationship with anyone else, or any human connection, you can use sort of this mindset of being present, of listening, and this active listening just helps kind of facilitate those skills and that mindset.
So by opening it up and taking it out of the therapist's hands, this is actually a practice that we can break down those barriers and make it more accessible to anybody, anywhere, at any time.
Yeah, and talking about therapy too, is I think that therapy it's the therapist listening to the client and the client is getting only part of the empathic relationship, right? They're just being heard, but they're not learning how to listen, and they're not learning how to take the listening to their family, friends, and their community. So I think this is sort of like the next step to what we're, what I think therapy should be about actually is like, hey, take these skills, this mindset to the larger community. So I think it's something that's missing in the whole therapeutic context.
So therapy is more of a one-sided conversation almost versus empathetic listening, which is actually acknowledging and repeating back that you've heard the other person's message, and then their speaking is validated.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So now you select whoever you'd like to speak to, and so you have 4 minutes.
Okay. I would like to speak with Trishla.
Hi.
Hi. I'm not sure if you caught my introduction, but I am a family peer support facilitator as well as suicide, grief, and bereavement. And so one of the reasons why I'm interested in empathy and the Empathy Circle training is that a huge barrier that I find when I work with clients is that they've got a huge message, they've got so much to say, but when they bring it out into the world, it's like hitting a wall because the people, their peers, their families, don't respond with that empathetic connection. It's more of a, you should do this, you need to do this, why aren't you responding in this manner? And so I think that if we taught people to respond in an empathetic manner, that our voices would actually be heard and the messages would be delivered in a way that they need to connect with people.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, because this is the barrier that we need to,
Tricia, if you can just reflect back what you heard.
Oh, okay.
Just reflecting, you're not like adding your own thoughts at this point. Just what did you hear Jen say?
Okay, so Jen, you're saying that the reason why you feel that empathy should be there is because people they don't get actually they feel that there is a barrier between them, and then there is nobody, no family, no peer group with them they can share their own thoughts and what actually they're going through.
I find that it's really hard for me as a facilitator when I host these support groups to be able to fully support and help people, because how do you explain to them that when they have these messages, the world is just not trained, not taught to respond in an empathetic manner. And so for myself, I find that a shortcoming too, because it's hard to take their messages and their support and say, well, good luck when you go out and into the real world, and there's empathy in our groups and in our small world, but as soon as they leave that room, they are subject to all kinds of different responses, and the majority of them are not empathetic.
Yeah. So what I understand is if we don't know like how to actually help them, and sometimes it's difficult to understand and to give them that response then that they're looking for. Yeah. So I think it's important for us to kind of understand that how we can be a good listener, how can we give them the support or the help they want actually.
Yeah. And then the other reason that I'm really interested in empathy and empathy circle teaching is that I work with a lot of children. I've got a couple children myself. And I'm just shocked at what's going on in the world, how young kids are, how much they're hurting, how much they're struggling, how much they are having difficulty just interacting and building relationships with one another. And my daughters have both asked me, like, Mom, what can you do for the kids in our community? And so I really think that I know that they all take something called Roots of Empathy in grade school, but I think an active practice for children to have a group like this would be absolutely phenomenal. And I think it would be great to start start teaching and practicing empathy with children?
So I think just to learn more about how to interact with the children, how to be empathetic towards them. It's a good idea to learn with this empathy circle training.
Yeah, I think if we really start with the younger generations, it would be nice to build that message that this is how to lead an empathetic life versus, okay, you've grown up in a world of anger and bullying, and you've got mental health and addictions problems, and then rather than trying to wait until those problems come to us to help solve them, if we started out earlier in life, especially with kids, I think we could certainly start the journey towards a more empathetic world for one another.
Yeah, I think by that you mean that if we teach them how to deal with the things at the early age, so they will be like more, they will be able to better handle the situations later in their lives.
Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thanks.
So now you select someone to listen to you, Trishla. Perhaps Jeffrey or Lisa, who haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, I would say Lisa.
Hello, I'm sorry my camera is not cooperating right now.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so I think empathy circle is very important. Actually, empathy is very, very basic and fundamental skill that we all should have. Because I have been working with mental health patients and, in the addiction center. And what I felt is it is very important to learn how to, how to listen to them and how to just, make sure what was the reason that lead them to go into that area, that problem. So I think that's why it's very important that you actively listen to them in order to help them.
So Trishla, I just heard you, I'm so sorry about the street noise in the background. I just heard you say that you work with many patients who are dealing and struggling with addiction, and that you find the Empathy Circle training to be very helpful, and you're interested in it in order to better empathize with the root causes of what leads people to have addictive personalities.
Yeah, and another reason is, to build a therapeutic alliance with anybody, with the patient. It's not just the medication, but I think the counseling part is very important. And even the research says that medication and counseling and the empathy, so they absolutely work for, work in a better way. So I think it's not just about prescribing the medication, but it's about, actually listening to them, because there could be an emotional or stressful cause, behind, any issue.
So I just heard you say that you're interested in helping your patients in a holistic way. And so that goes beyond just prescriptions, but that active listening and the therapeutic components will also be very beneficial to help the people that you serve.
Yeah. And one more thing about the teenagers, I have seen lots of teenagers, they're struggling with the, with the anxiety and with the substance use problems. And I believe our main reason behind that is, the lack of the active listening, and they find it difficult that nobody is listening to them. And sometimes even small problems, they think it's a big deal for them. So I think Empathy Circle training will help me, find out more ways how I can connect with the adolescents and the youth generation, and it will be helpful, to help them.
So you're saying the Empathy Circle training will also help you be able to better listen to the young people that you work with, because there may be a gap in understanding of why their issues seem so enormous to them. And so this will help you better be able to empathize with what their experience is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last part, I would say, it's not about the, the people you deal with, but it's about your own people that, that are your family members or your friends. Sometimes you think that you should be more empathetic and you should listen to them because everybody, for example, like our grandparents, so they need a ear to listen to them. And so I think I will learn a lot from Empathy Circle to to be a good active listener and to help people at their mental and physical well-being.
So I feel like I just heard you first talk about the people that you work with and serve, and then you sort of explained why that will reverberate into your personal life. And so it seems that Empathy Circle training really reverberates into all of our social interactions.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That was the time too. So Lisa, you're choosing your listener now. Perhaps Godfrey, who hasn't spoken, but it's your choice.
Yes, Godfrey, are you available?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Okay.
I'm interested in empathy circles because I'm actually looking to transition into a new field, and that may look like doing diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings in K-12 schools, where those difficult conversations will had to be had about like anti-Blackness sentiment. And so I hope that this will be a really great tool to help bring everybody to the table and practice more empathy, myself included.
Okay, Lisa. So I think I heard you. You said you're looking towards transitioning into a new field. So you feel like the empathy training will help you to have a holistic approach when you are assisting everybody.
Yes, thank you. Should I say more?
Yes, you've got about 3 minutes.
Okay. I think it will definitely help me in my own interpersonal relationships to decenter myself. And I think that will just make me a more effective communicator because I will be a better listener and understand that my perspective is just that, it's my own, and it is limited.
Okay, so if I heard you well, you feel like this training will help you on your interpersonal relation and also make you an effective listener in your practice.
Yes, that's true. And another reason why I think it will be immediately useful is because I'm also on the diversity committee at my current company, and we will be engaging in some conversations where in the past I feel like many voices overpowered the most marginalized. And so I'm hoping to bring a tool that will foster more productive discussion.
Okay, so you feel like in the area of diversity, as you were saying, you feel like when you are equipped with the empathetic skills, you are able to engage and foster a positive relationship with those that are marginalized.
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Godfrey, you can choose who you want to speak to. You might be on a cell phone, so you're not seeing everyone. Michelle hasn't listened yet. If you want to choose Michelle, but it's your choice.
It's okay. I think I can choose Michelle.
Okay.
Okay. I'm here to listen.
Hi, Michelle. Okay. I feel like as a social worker, I need to understand on how to develop empathy and also on how to express it. Considering that I'm coming from an African country, most of the therapies or most of the techniques that we are using, we are borrowing them from the West. So it's something that might seem new, but I feel like if I get it from you guys, I'll be able to internalize it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that as a social worker in Africa, you believe that learning these empathy skills from the Western countries will help you to improve your skills.
Yes, that's it. And I also feel like as a social worker, I need to understand the difference between empathy and sympathetic, and being sympathetic.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you repeat that?
Okay, so I was saying, as a social worker, I think I need to understand. I feel maybe this training will help me to understand.
Godfrey, your audio is
between being sympathetic and being empathetic, because at times empathy.
You may want to turn off your video,
Hello?
Godfrey, because you're breaking up a lot. So it's not looks like a bandwidth issue. Yeah, that's good. So,
okay.
Did you get that, Michelle? But
I believe that Godfrey, you were saying that as a social worker, you're trying to figure out the differences between being sympathetic and empathetic. That's
Yes.
all I heard.
Okay, I think I'm fully heard.
okay, then Michelle, you choose again who you would like to speak to.
I'll speak to Jen.
Okay, Michelle, go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, I was listening to what you were saying, and I understand what it's like to live with feeling suicidal and not being heard and feeling like you have nobody to talk to because everybody just feels like you should be able to deal with it and move on. And I think that's what's made me more empathetic to others, is because you realize that people aren't being heard and people are struggling because they aren't being heard. So there is that need for people to be empathetic and take in what other people are saying.
Okay, so Michelle, what I'm hearing from you is that you're a person who can identify with some of the barriers, challenges, the emotions that surround the area of suicide, and what that can be like to go through it yourself personally. And so you're feeling like the practice of empathy would help to break down those barriers a bit more, and why it's so important that we put empathy in place for people that identify with these feelings.
And like you said, if we start with children that are younger and we start teaching them these skills, it will definitely help for people as they move on. We don't have to worry that this is something that they have to learn after they've been through these situations. They're able to help their peers. They're able to understand each other. There's less conflict. And I think that the sooner we start teaching people these skills, that the world will actually become more understanding.
So I'm hearing that you're definitely a believer in putting the empathetic processes into play for people earlier in life to really help them build their successes down the road.
Yeah, I believe that I know living with a family, especially different cultures, not all cultures are open to understanding what you're trying to say. Some cultures believe that you should just get through your feelings and kind of deal with it on your own. Sorry for my dog, who wants to join the conversation. But I think if we start instilling that into different cultures, that we will all get that understanding and be able to empathize, and we don't feel like we have to keep our thoughts to ourselves, our feelings to ourselves, and then struggle and deal with mental health by ourselves.
So what I'm hearing your dog say is that he's in agreement with the things that you're saying. And that Another barrier that you are really aware and recognize is the differences in cultural society of how we are able to connect and interact with another, because cultural belief plays a huge role in our ability to communicate across all languages, all barriers with one another.
Thank you. I feel fully heard since you won't stop. So thank you, though.
You're very welcome. All right. I will speak with Lisa. Empathy as a practice was something that I wanted to talk about a bit, because I started noticing a big trend on the internet a couple years ago. A lot of stuff on Facebook, Instagram. Take this test. Are you an empath? Empaths identify with these ideas. This is how they feel. This is how they react, and why it's great to be an empath, and all sorts of things like that. Was a big bombardment on the internet for a little while ago. And I found some points that I was able to identify with. But what I really liked about this training and this process when I came across it was that there's substance and value to this, and that it can be taught, it can be practiced. It's not just, hey, look at this internet meme, like, doesn't it look good? Like, give it a heart or give it a like. There's actually something to this process, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to utilize it, rather than just being sympathetic and going around with that flashcard saying, hey, I identify as an empath. Well, I feel like that's just very surface level, that's not enough. And then I feel that if you truly believe in an empathic life, that you should promote it, you should practice it, you should work on it for sure.
So Jen, I'm hearing you say that you were originally interested in the topic of empathy through like the prevalence of these tests on whether or not you're an empath on the internet, but they sort of fell short because they seemed more just descriptive, whereas this really feels like a practice, something that gives you the tools to be a more empathetic person. And so that's why you find it very useful.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I would just like to say, I really appreciate the way that you reflect what I'm saying, and I appreciate this process and how succinct you are at reiterating my message. So I really do feel heard. Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you, but I'm like, I'm supposed to mirror back what Jen said, right? So Jen, I receive that you appreciate the way that I'm able to reflect back your ideas and your feelings. So thank you.
Do you feel fully heard, or do you have 1 minute, Jen?
No, I feel fully heard, and I
Okay.
feel that my message has been sent.
Great, thanks.
I would like to talk to Michelle.
Hi, Lisa. I'm listening.
Hi, Michelle. I am drawn to the empathy circles because I just think that, I'm sorry, having trouble gathering my thoughts. Similar to Jen, it will give us the tools in order to have more healthy conversations. And it is one thing to say, I feel this way, or I'm a very sensitive person, but it is another thing to put that into practice, and continually work on mastering this skill or flexing this muscle that ultimately makes our world a better one.
Okay, Lisa, I'm hearing that you're saying that you want to be able to more than just say that you understand, but you want to practice the skill and make sure that you're doing it in a way that it can benefit the world.
Yes, thank you. And I feel fully heard.
So again, Michelle, you select who you want to speak to.
I will speak to Trishla.
I think Trishla had dropped out. Somehow the connection didn't.
Okay, I'll speak to you, Edwin.
Okay, I'm listening.
I just been thinking of, while listening to everyone, how this is really, I've never been the person to actually speak. I'm always the person who's listened. And so to me, this is very different. And I'm not sure I'm giving everything I need to, but it's interesting being on the other side of it. I definitely prefer listening to others and being there for them than actually being the one talking.
So usually in the relationships, you're the one that's doing the listening, and you actually prefer that, and you're trying to adjust to being the speaker here.
Yes, I feel that it's kind of interesting, and this is also probably part of the skill. And in communication and empathizing, you have to be able to do both sides. And so I think I'm actually taking a lot from this part of it. And I'm appreciating that everyone's listening, and I'm appreciating everyone's thoughts.
So you're realizing, you have a realization that for an empathic relationship, you have to be able to speak and to listen, and you're really getting a lot from everyone here too. You're sound like you're getting a lot from what everyone's saying.
Yeah, I agree with what you said with therapy, because been going through therapy throughout my life. You talk, and you don't always get anything back. And sometimes when you're just talking, you just feel like you're talking to yourself. And I feel like what you're saying with the empathy listening, we then are also feeling like we've been heard, not like we've just been spewing what we're feeling and it's going nowhere, but somebody actually understands what we're going through.
So you've been through therapy, and you say you feel like, oh, you're just talking to yourself, and when you're in sort of a relationship, it feels like it's going somewhere more. The discussion, the listening, and the speaking, the relationship's going somewhere, I guess.
Exactly. And when you say relationship, I think it is a key also to be able to do this in relationships, because we sometimes only hear what we're feeling. We don't hear what the other person's feeling, and vice versa. They don't really hear what we're feeling, and then that's what causes the problems in relationships. And I think that if we actually take this time to have these empathetic discussions, taking the time for one person to talk and one person to listen, it would probably improve on a lot of relationships.
So you're really building on that word relationships, that if you're just speaking and the other person's not listening, it's not really a relationship. And so to build relationships, the speaking and the listening can really help there. I don't know if I quite got that. But...
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Okay. Speak to Godfrey. Are you there? You're still muted.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this this discussion. It's just to see how everyone appreciates the value of empathy and sees the importance of it is just feels really good to know, hey, there's people in the world that really value this. So it feels really good to be in this conversation.
Okay, so you're saying you feel and you appreciate that everyone is you appreciate how everyone is viewing empathy, and you feel really good about everyone with their thoughts on empathy.
Yeah, and and the other thing is, I did want to say about the empathy circle. I guess what we're doing here, it seems very simple, very rudimentary, but it's sort of this core foundational practice that I think someone was talking about listening in like with drug addiction or all these different situations. And this skill that we're doing right here, I think is, from my experience, is a foundational first step. It's sort of just very basic. It's just, and it's used in all these other practices.
Okay, so if I heard you, you're saying what we are doing right now, it might seem simple, but it is the core foundation of the practice of establishing empathy. Is everyone will be talking and everyone they'll be open to each other.
And there's a practice called motivational interviewing that was developed for using empathic listening and other skills in terms within the context of addiction, drug addiction. And the basics starts with empathy, listening to people who are dealing with these issues and being able to hear them. And so again, this practice again is foundational to that motivational interviewing and so many other practices, counseling, etc. So yeah, so I guess I'm just trying to make the point that this is an important practice, even if it seems very simple. It's sort of foundational to a lot of different practices and skills.
Okay. So if I heard you as well, you said in terms of motivational interviewing, you also gave a context within the context of drug addiction that it is important for us to listen and so that the client they feel heard.
Yeah. And there was something came up too about holding difficult conversations, so around diversity and so forth. And I think that the empathy circle is a space where everyone can feel heard. So I think that it has a real big potential in this, all the diversity inclusion training that a lot of people are doing.
Okay, I heard you. I think you said the empathy circle is a place for where everyone feel heard and regardless of orientation of where you're coming from, its cultural diversity gives space for expression.
Right, I feel fully heard. Yeah, thanks. And Sistar, just a quick note, Sistar, I think you should be able to push a button to get back into the room 3. I think you had dropped out.
Hi, Edwin. No,
yeah.
when I pressed leave the breakout room just now, it brought me here. So I don't know.
Oh, when you okay, if you go back, you don't. Yeah, we have another about 20 minutes in the breakout room, so you should be able to.
Sorry, what room was I in again?
You were in room 3. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Please don't move me again. Whoever moved me. Bye.
Okay, great. Bye. Hopefully you'll move there. There you go. Okay. So sorry, Godfrey, little technical issues here. So now you select who you want to speak to. It's your turn again. You got 4 minutes.
It's okay. I think I'll speak with Jane.
All right, Godfrey, I'm listening.
Hi, Jane. Okay, so as I was saying, within the context of drawing a line between empathy and sympathy, I understand empathy involves putting myself into the client's feelings, right?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you are examining the differences between empathy and sympathy and how empathy puts you as a person more in those shoes and experiences those emotions.
Yes, I also feel like putting myself in the client's road, maybe showing some emotions free from judgment and criticism, won't it lead to a point where I'm going to be emotionally involved in the client situation?
Okay, so I'm hearing that putting yourself in the emotional realm to identify with your clients is something that you're looking at, and how the emotional involvement directly relates to yourself.
Yes, that's it. So probably the other thing that I would want to talk about in terms of empathy, the issues of cultural differences, as you are dealing with clients that are coming from different cultural backgrounds. Some of them, when you become empathetic, maybe you might be showing, maybe to them it might be something that is not appropriate. Why are you being empathetic with them?
So different cultures handle the practice of empathy differently, and so there are different ways that different cultures respond when we use an empathetic identify with on the same level as you.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
All right. I will speak with Edwin.
Okay, listening.
I'm really appreciating this practice today. Something that I find in a lot of support groups and the work that I do is the group mentality is fantastic for sharing and for learning. But sometimes I feel that the people in these groups are just listening to respond. And so if we bring in this empathy circle, we can, rather than having just people wait their turn to share their story and that they're not actually listening to their group members.
So you take part in support groups, and in the support group, you find that participants are just waiting to speak or to respond to what they're hearing. And I think I'm hearing an appreciation for the deeper listening that's happening here.
Yes. And another thing that I've noticed the difference between support groups that I run and this empathy circle is that it's really valuable to be able to take a step back and watch a conversation take place between two individuals and not being able to necessarily comment on it or jump in, but just to have that space to reflect on the interaction between two people while still in a group is still very, very beneficial to myself and my learning.
So you find it beneficial to be able to watch others have an empathic dialogue where you don't have to jump in and sort of be part of it, but have sort of that space to observe.
Yeah, I feel like that's beneficial for the two people that are interacting as well as the silent listeners in the group. So I really appreciate that. And I like what's coming out of this group too, and how everybody's got a different perspective on what they want to children, mental health, addictions, racism, cultural background. It's given me an opportunity to open my spectrum and see more areas and more uses of this type of training.
So you're appreciating that everyone's coming from their own point of view, from racism, from child development, from drug addiction, all these different spaces, and it's you're sort of appreciating that. It's kind of giving you new insights as well, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Great. Then maybe the clock. Michelle, can I speak to you?
Sure, I'm listening.
Okay, so I did want to, I love all these insights that I'm hearing from everyone, that the insights of what we're doing and, why it's beneficial and how people are reacting to it. I really appreciate that, like what Jen just said. Yep, I'm not hearing you. Your audio just, is it me or is it you?
Okay, I can hear you.
Oh, there you go. There we go. So did you want to reflect that last part?
I didn't hear you. If you wouldn't mind repeating.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just appreciating all the insights that everyone is sharing, like what Jen was just saying about sort of the nature of the empathy circle. I really appreciate hearing all those different insights everyone's sharing.
From what I'm hearing is that you're appreciating everybody's insights, what everybody else is saying, and that you liked hearing what Jen had to say and about how she sees everything differently from this.
Yeah, and I wanted to address what Godfrey was asking about the empathy and sympathy. So with the empathy right now, you're just listening to what I'm saying and just hearing me and sort of staying with me and being present with me. And so for me, that's empathy. You're sort of, you are empathizing with me. So that's what the empathy is. And I'm going to just share what I would say sympathy is.
Okay, so you're saying with empathy, you're mainly there with you, and we're experiencing what you're saying and listening and taking it all in. And sympathy would be something different, which you'll explain.
Yeah. And so the sympathy part would be is, let's say, I remember when my dog died, right? It's like I was a little kid, my dog died, and I was just like in tears, and I could be sharing my experience of my dog dying, and I'm in tears. I'm like, oh, I feel terrible. And then I'm speaking to you. And then instead of you just hearing, saying, oh, I hear you're so sad, you're feeling sad that your dog died, you would say, oh, I remember when my dog died, I felt so sad as well, or I feel so sorry for you. So instead of just listening to me, you would start talking about your experience and about your sadness in relation to my sadness. And that's what I would say is sympathy. So sympathy can sort of block you being present with me. It becomes about you. So that's what I see as the difference in sympathy and empathy.
Okay, so what I see that you're saying about sympathy is that we take our own experiences and kind of add it to what that person's feeling, which kind of blocks them being able to fully discuss what they're feeling because we've now added our own feelings into it.
Exactly. And so it's good to first hear the person who's in pain, just hear them, be present until they feel fully heard, maybe have a sense of connection. And then, when it's your turn, you can say, well, I feel sorry for you, or whatever, or I feel sad. I remember. So when it's your turn, then you say whatever you want, like in the empathy circle. So there's nothing, wrong with the sympathy per se, but first you want to hear the person to fully hear about their grief, their sadness, and the whole experience that they're having. And that's very healing and very supportive for the person who's in pain.
So what I'm hearing is that the difference with empathy is you need to give that person their time to be able to talk and express how they're feeling and fully try to understand that. And then when it's your turn to talk, then you can then sympathize with them to let them know that you understand how they're feeling and how you've experienced that as well.
Yeah, well, it's when you're listening to them and reflecting back what they're saying, you're letting them know that you actually have heard them. So that's one. The second part is it's healing. When the person is feeling alone in grief by themselves, just knowing that someone is there with them is very healing.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that the first step is to let them speak and let them feel what they're feeling. But then by doing the second step of like saying how you understand and that you've been through it, it kind of makes them feel like they're being heard and they're able to heal with that.
Yeah, well, the empathy that you're doing is the healing part. That is the healing. It's just for them to feel heard. The person in grief feeling heard is healing.
So what you're saying is then when a person is speaking, when they're actually being listened to and being heard, that is the empathy. That is the healing process for
Yep,
them. They're being
exactly. I feel deeply heard. Thank you, Michelle. So you're the speaker again?
So I have to choose someone. Okay, I'll choose Lisa.
I'm all ears, Michelle.
Thank you, Lisa. I have learned a lot from this, especially the topic of empathy versus sympathy. It's something we always think that if we're kind of like adding our own feelings to it and telling people that we understand how they're feeling because we've gone through something, it kind of helps them. But now I do understand that maybe taking that time to listen is more healing for them.
I'm hearing you say that something that you've learned from today is that sometimes just listening and telling somebody that you're hearing them can actually be more helpful than saying, I do empathize, I have a similar experience, I can relate to you.
Yes, that's it exactly. With my business, it's mainly just listening, and sometimes you do want to put your feelings into it, but it's true that actually just listening to somebody is so much more helpful for them than to be putting your own thoughts into it. And I don't think that enough people realize that importance. And We don't need to tell people how they need to feel or what they need to do to feel better, but just letting them be heard helps them to feel like they're healing themselves.
I hear you saying that we really shouldn't underestimate the power of just deep listening and making somebody feel heard. We don't always need to come up with a solution or give advice or provide an opinion. Sometimes just merely listening is very healing.
Thank you, Lisa. I feel fully heard.
You're welcome. I will talk to Jen.
Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
I agree with what a lot of people have said. I'm feeling the very familiar impulse to, provide my own opinion, or also say like, me too, I totally understand that. So I definitely can see how just listening and not jumping to necessarily having a back and forth dialogue very helpful. I'm already thinking of ways to implement it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that that you're really examining what this process is doing for you and the difference of actually physically being heard versus then the difference between like a back and forth, like a ping pong ball type of conversation. And having this experience is starting to open some brain waves for you on how you can implement this to different places in your life and the value
Yes,
that you find it.
And I'll just add, I'm wondering if there is ever an empathy circle practice where, say, people in positions of power, such as in an organization, where those people are not speaking. If it's ever, if empathy circles are ever operating in a way that are practicing equity. That's just a wondering that I have.
Okay, so you're looking for some more clarification on empathy circles themselves. How are they functioning? At what levels? How they include or unclude people?
That's exactly. I feel fully heard. Thank you, Jen.
All right. So I see that we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'll make this short and sweet. I would like to conclude my speaking with the realization that I have never sat in a group of people.
Who are you speaking to?
I'll speak to Michelle. So yeah, I would just like to conclude with the statement that I've never sat in a group and had the power or the courage to actually admit to someone that I feel heard. That is a new experience for me. I'm used to group dialogue and finding people that identify with my feelings or an experience that I've been through, but I have never actually felt heard as a practice. And so this has been very eye-opening for me as a person who does support groups and has been in support groups.
Jen, what I'm hearing is that out of all the time you've been doing support groups, this is the first time you can actually say that you feel heard. A lot of the time you sit in the groups and you're listening and others are listening, but you've never actually felt the empowerment of actually feeling heard.
Yes, I definitely, when I'm a speaker, it makes me feel vulnerable, and I recognize that can be very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for myself, it's uncomfortable for group members and people that I work with, and that's a hard thing to deal with. And so to be able to have a different practice of listening, to just be able to say, thank you, I feel heard, is a really good way of settling the vulnerability that I feel within myself.
So what I'm hearing is that being a speaker is very vulnerable, and actually being able to speak and then listen and feel heard and be able to say you fully feel heard is a really good feeling for you.
Yes, I really appreciate just being able to talk and not being compared to anyone else, not being judged, just honestly being listened to. This is a really new feeling, and I very much appreciate this experience today.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're really happy with the fact that you've been able to be heard, and just having people listen and understand how you're feeling, and you appreciate it, and you've enjoyed the experience.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Good, I'm glad.
Okay, great. So we're going to close the room in a minute or two. I guess I should close it, but I will add that is one of the practices, the part of the empathy circle is that the goal is for the speaker to feel heard to their satisfaction. So if you don't feel heard, it's your responsibility to keep saying what you're saying until you have a sense that, oh, you really got me to, what I'm trying to convey. And sometimes, you don't feel quite heard, and it's like, well, I feel heard enough, you feel satisfied, but it is up to you to really, determine whether you've been heard to your satisfaction. And I'm going to close all the rooms, and we'll have about a minute before everybody comes back in. And I will mention it in terms of, Lisa, what you were asking. The circle always is that everyone has equal time to speak and to be heard. So it's not like, so if you're talking about people who are in power, being with others, that everyone has equal time. So you'll see that even I, as the facilitator, whoever's facilitating, you don't necessarily need a facilitator, that everyone is part of the process. Everyone has equal time. And so that's like a core principle of the practice. So just wanted to kind of clarify that too. I don't know if you have any other questions before everybody pops in here, any comments.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying on the difference between sympathy and empathy. I think I've learned today.
Thanks, Godfrey. Okay, everybody's coming back in slowly here. Let me get our question for the debrief. We'll have a little time to debrief. Okay, let me put this into everyone in the meeting. So you'll have, we want to go around in here, everyone, take 30 seconds to share any learnings or insight that you had. Michelle, would you be willing to start and then call on others just to hear everyone's feedback for about 30 seconds?
Yeah, so gratefully. Yeah, that was, the circle we just had, what landed most deeply was, so we had Jeanette and Hilna and Stephen on it, and each brought so much. But the main thing that really stood out for me is that around the world, there's things happening in America that will happen in the UK that are it's like these common threads, and that by coming together in this way, it's just showing that locations are different, but the same issues are happening. And yeah, it just went too fast. So thank you to everybody in my group, and yeah, I hope you stay going on the journey. Shaness, can I call on you? Would that be okay?
You said me?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the Empathy Circle. Like I said, I work in a trauma-informed environment, so I understand this concept, and it's kind of like motivational interviewing too. But I want to know, with the Empathy Circle, is there a self-care aspect to it? Like at the end of the circle, do you does the facilitator, do you guys practice self-care? And I would imagine some of these circles are really, they call it secondary trauma.
Well, maybe I can just quickly answer that. In terms of the empathy circle, if you're dealing in a traumatic environment or like with conflict, like this practice is foundational for conflict mediation, that afterwards the facilitators have an empathy circle with each other so that they can be heard. So before a difficult empathy circle, you'll have facilitators supporting each other, and then afterwards, and that mutual listening of the facilitators is actually very helpful and supportive in healing. So, yeah. So anyway,
Okay.
Michelle, if you want to, thanks.
Yeah, and just to offer, Sinead, like if you want to put a buddy call, a follow-up buddy call with any of us, like either with myself, with anyone in the group, or any of the facilitators or anyone in the organization, that's like what we love to do. So like, so as Edwin said, there's a process around it, but also just on a personal level after the circle, we just had, if you feel you would like to have a buddy call, just ask for it and it'll happen. So, Hilna, does that sound okay? Yeah.
Hi.
Hilna, yeah.
A bit of feedback, is it, on the experience?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how the circle was for you.
It was very enlightening. I did better than I thought in summing up what I heard, so that was confidence boosting for me. But I learned something that's going on in America, and something I feared happening, and that's the vaccine would be mandated for some people working in some organizations. And I'm just, how are we all allowing this to happen? That the already disproportionately impacted communities are going to be further impacted because their rights taken away, their fears about COVID, the vaccination, lack of trust of the government for no fault of their own. And they're being told, we don't care about your fears. We don't care that you're afraid you may not survive this second vaccination. We don't care that you have children and who would look after them. You work for us, you take the vaccination. And I'm just appalled and worried. But overall, a great experience. And I think, perhaps not for trauma, but certainly in conflict resolution, I can see how this would be impactful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hilna. Stephen, would you like to share?
Sure. The structure of just reflecting or recapping or paraphrasing what somebody said really helped me listen well to folks that might have a very different experience than I have, and just to get just simple thing of what they're saying and to get it well. It was very useful, and I quite enjoyed being in a group of people who were all very, very different. That's it.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Jen, would you like to share?
Sure, I would love to share. One of the biggest takeaways that I got out of this was I found that there's a large difference in telling someone I heard you versus kind of having an intimate conversation with them about how you heard them, what you heard from them, just kind of having that deeper connection rather than, yeah, okay, I heard you, who's next? I really appreciate that dialogue of, have I heard you correctly? No, I haven't. Please clarify until I do receive your message and I have heard it. And I really appreciate the vulnerability that it takes to speak, and just that almost that therapeutic relief of being the speaker and and not being compared to anyone, not being judged, just to be able to sit back and say, I was heard. That's miraculously healing. I'm very, very grateful for today's experience. So thank you everyone so much.
Oh, thanks so much, Jan. Michelle Groban, would you like to share next?
Sure, I really appreciated this experience. It was, like Jen said, it was you have to be very vulnerable. And I think going into it being the first speaker, I was just at a loss. I didn't know what to say. And then as you go through it and you listen to others, it opens your mind to other thoughts and to other ideas to share. And I really appreciated it. I appreciated hearing what other people said and the repeating it and paraphrasing it. It just really made you have to think a little bit more about what they were saying. And it's a great experience, and it's something that a lot of people should learn. I think it's really, really beneficial.
That's really cool. Cool. Anne, would you like to share?
Hello, everyone. I think it was a wonderful experience today. We were a small group, and it really brings to fore you have to be 100% in the moment to hear what is being said in order to be able to reflect and repeat to that person what they're saying. I was sharing at one time, one of the speakers, I was the active listener. My pet made a noise, and it really distracted me in that moment, and to get me back centered. So I think having a clear mind is very, very important. And this is really, really great training. I think everyone should have it. It would help regardless if it's professional, personal lives or for personal lives to hone our skills. Active listening, I think, is something that we learn all the time because we have all those different voices in our head speaking, telling us what we have to do, and we can lose the messaging in what that person is telling us. So thank you.
Thanks, Anne. And Lisa Nigan.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I loved the experience today because I think the active listening also really slows you down because you have to listen so deeply. I just feel like I'm able to understand what other people are saying better. And then the fact that this is a kindness to somebody else and it's really helping somebody else. I think that in turn is also extremely healing for the listener. So I just love the effect of this practice.
Magic. Cam, would you like to share next?
Hi, I'd be happy to, Michelle. So it was a great afternoon. It's afternoon here in Toronto. One of the things I really got taken with is the role of an empathy circle and what it can play. And what I heard was the role of the empathy circle is to raise three things: communication, understanding, and respect. And societally, I think that's all we need in many cases, is just if we can raise those three things, so much good is going to happen. And then from a clinical perspective, so more of a professional perspective, there's going to be some follow-up necessary after empathy circles for families in issues or trauma victims or the like. So I guess my point is, it's important that for me that I knew the role of the empathy circle and how it can solve a lot of things, but it's not meant to be a problem solver for every situation. It's meant to start the problem solving process. That's one of the many things I learned today. Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, thanks, Cam. Godfrey, would you like to share next?
Okay, thank you. I think it was a great experience. I've managed to internalize the difference between empathy and sympathy. From the group I was in, I understood that with empathy, it's more about listening without being judgmental. And the goal with empathy is to show that I fully heard what the client has said. That was a great experience. Thank you.
Sister, would you like to share next?
Yeah, I've unmuted myself. Greetings, everybody. This is my second time in the introduction, and it's all good. This time, we had various discussions around different topics, and for me, the empathy circle is about active listening. So sometimes we appear to listen to what people are saying, but are we hearing them? And are we too being heard? And I guess that the more you do it, the more better you get at it. So in terms of active listening and hearing what people are saying and repeating that to make sure you're understanding what they're saying and not understanding. And that's it for me. Listening tools and strengthening them.
Aaron, would you like to share?
Sure. Immediately, it was kind of striking. I was telling the group about having like with all the reflecting and stuff is kind of like a mirror, and you just see and hear yourself differently, and that's kind of just a fun quality about that. And then also there was a moment when we were all kind of asking questions. I kind of had to take a step back with the baby for a second, so I just kind of observed, and it was like all the questions about the empathy circle being asked in a way that it was sort of weaving this echo chamber, like a web of wonder or something like that. It was just kind of beautiful to see how each question sort of deepened to a different level with each different person, and it was reflecting back, and it was just very beautiful to see.
Gorgeous. Dr. Lady Moore, would you like to share?
Yes, thank you. What I got from today is that absolutely for myself, continuously learning empathetic listening is an ongoing process and will always be an ongoing process because there are different understandings, there are different types of hearing, not just from those who are the listeners, but those who are communicating. It's important that I learn and know that this is an ongoing process for me. And I am really happy to be a part of, this process.
We're really happy that you're here too. Victoria.
Hello, thanks, Michelle. I didn't know what to expect today, and I was really nervous, but everybody shared and listened actively. I'm a good listener, but I'm not always a good talker, so it's going to improve my skills in that way as well. And I just say thank you to everyone for taking part and listening and not being judgmental, because that's really important to take this forward with us. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Victoria. Maria, would you like to share?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'm really appreciative of everyone who participated and being vulnerable and taking the time to go back and forth. I think that you know, this is a really great practice and exercise in like the gardening of your mind. And I would love to take more time out to participate in these kind of things to mature my own listening and help mature the listening and the communication between the communities that I work with. So I appreciate all of you for taking the time to participate in that and kind of be a test group of how this can be successful. For me, I've just tried little practices like that before, and I really appreciate other people doing it this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and thanks, Maria. So I'm just checking that we have, yeah, all of the group. Okay, so to our facilitator, Graham, would you like to share?
Thank you. Today was a really valuable experience. Not only did the circle allow me to be vulnerable, but it also taught me the importance of empathy in terms of saving people's lives. And for example, I have a friend come client, there's a complex relationship in there, but nonetheless, this person is unstable and threatening suicide. And it's my job to keep him on board. And I can only do that through being empathic. And today taught me a lot about the value of empathy and the disciplines required from the person giving empathy. And so it's been a really amazing experience. And I thank Dr. Lady Moore, and I thank Anne Shinath, and there was also somebody else who dropped out of our circle. Her name was Laura O'Neill, and she was the lady who had no volume, no audio. So that was yet another facilitation experience. So, but I thank all of them heartily for the experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Bill, do you mind sharing?
No, not at all. Well, I have profound appreciation for everybody in my group. And I have to say, these are serious people. These are people ready to get to work, ready to change the world. And, you know, I hope it was of help, but you've inspired me, and thank you.
Edwin.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. So we went a little bit over, sorry about that. Try to keep us on time. I just put in a link into the chat, if you can see that. If you can click on that link, that's a feedback form, if you're be willing to fill that out. And just kind of post there. So I want to thank everyone for taking part in the training. When you in the introduction here and to the Empathy Circle, when you first get started with, you know, it's a little bit awkward, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, as somebody has mentioned, but as you do it and you start feeling heard, you start getting more and more comfortable. If you join us again next week, for the next 3 weeks, we'll be here doing these intro cafes. And there'll be one on Monday too, the next Monday. If you're wanting to join that, you can see the website. I put the link in before for the schedule. And then on August 7th, I think we'll have enough people by then to start the training cohort, that 5-week cohort. So you know, check that out, and you can apply for that. And I was giving you a few seconds here to open this document. If you go down, just type in your email, and that says your feedback on the introduction to the Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. Type in your email and then your name, and we'll end the call. And then you can take time and fill it out. It's just that gives us your contact info so we can stay in contact. gets your feedback on how the experience was. And also, if you're interested in taking the training, you can, click there if you're interested in the training. And feel free to email me with any questions. My email is all over the place. I think it's on that document too. If it's not, I'll going to add it after this. So that's it. We like to end with some jazz hands. If you don't have your video on, you can turn it on. If we could get you to turn your video on so you can get a group portrait just for a second. Yeah, and we're getting, people are turning it on, getting jazz hands. So this is mirrored empathy, when you kind of mirror each other's movements. So Anne, you want to give it a try? There we go. Okay, great. So see you next week. And if you're a facilitator, if you could stay back, and thank you so much for taking part. Look forward to seeing you next week or one of the other cafes. Bye for now.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thanks for joining us.